Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a very senior professional, a former Fortune 500 executive, currently talking to us from Guyana, but he's from Italy, Mr. Enrico Biscaro. Enrico, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Ash. Thanks for having me here. It's really an honor.
Thank you. Enrico is the founder of Enrico Business Consultants. As I said, he's a former Fortune 500 executive, and he's an expert in business transformation and business strategy. So, Enrico, before we get into business transformation, tell me about your own journey in brief.
So my own journey started in a train station near Venice, where I saw a few people coming off the train with big backpacks on their shoulder. I was probably 12, 13. And I remember, one of those memories you really remember is not fuzzy, it's not, and I said, I want to travel the world. I want to be like them. I want to, have a backpack on my shoulder and discover different country, different culture. So I say that my journey started there. And then I found, with obviously the school, the university, that the energy industry would give me that opportunity to travel the world and at the same time contribute to society, because let's face it, the lights needs to be on day and night, and that's my journey in brief, really.
Fascinating. And you said that you spent almost 2 decades with the oil and gas industry.
That is correct. But we like to call it energy industry today.
I agree.
Talking about transformation, the word you use are very important. So oil and gas these days is, a bit different, but energy is good. Energy everybody.
So you spent 20 years in the energy and then decided to branch off on your own. So let's now talk about transformation and strategy. Let me start by asking you, how do you define transformation?
So it's a great question, because if you go to the dictionary, transformation is change. But to me, transformation is listening. Unless you can listen very carefully, there cannot be transformation. And you might have to listen to your customer to transform your offering, your product. What I'm passionate about is listening to the people in our team, the people that we lead, because unless you listen carefully to what motivates them, transformation cannot happen.
Right. Very interesting. And when I was reading about you, I came across a very interesting part of your document, which says that you transformed a business in Asia Pacific. Tell me a little bit more about that business.
Yeah, that business, let's say, that was not doing too well. And I got a call from my VP at the time and say, would you go to Asia? And of course, me being me, I said, of course, and that was a part of the world I did not travel yet. So I said, yes, I am going. He said, do you realize that more senior leader than you went there? And that was them, because it was very challenging. I said, yeah, I understand, but that's the challenge I want to pick up. That was a transformation that I wanted to achieve. And so I went, and you can say the rest is history.
What were some of your learnings when you went through this exercise as you came to Asia?
So what I learned there is that you cannot really change people or behavior. You need to show them what people are capable of doing. and the problem there was not that there was no business or the business was bad, you know, the usual excuses, and maybe after we can talk about excuses and transformation, but really your job is to tell people, look, I know you can do it, but if you don't worry, I am in a leadership position, I am accountable for it. And I've learned that when you say I am accountable for it, you immediately give freedom to the people to find solutions they never thought about.
Okay.
Because very often, not very often, quite frankly, you know, and I certainly I also have the same thing, which is fear of failure. But I find that when you take away that fear, then magic or even miracle can happen. Yeah.
How wonderful. And yet, Enrico, when you talk of transformation, and you know, based on my own experience, most leaders don't like transformation unless they're pushed to the wall. Most people like status quo. How do you persuade leaders to transform?
You know, it's funny you say, because every time somebody mentioned that, I think about Blockbuster and Kodak and you know, BlackBerry. They had leaders that did not see it coming.
Correct.
Right? I find that storytelling is very powerful. It's a powerful way to connect to people, because I think transformation cannot happen unless, and I said it before, unless you listen, but unless you connect to a much deeper level with the decision maker.
Correct.
And so I found that the best way to show a vision is through storytelling. And I don't know, but I can give you an example if you want.
Please give me an example.
So I had to convince a senior executive to spend some money in a program that would help us to standardize the way we did some tasks in our organization. And of course, you know, you need to go for an investment, but the key thing here was standardization. So, you know, the usual PowerPoint, and you prepare it, and I said, no, this time I am not gonna put an agenda. He knows what I'm here for. He knows what I'm gonna ask. So I'm gonna put a little story at the beginning. So I put the story of this person. It was my granddad friend. He fought in the Second World War in Africa.
Okay.
He was a prisoner of war. And one day I remember, again, I was maybe 14, 15 at the time. We were playing cards, and he said, Enrico, he said, you know, the person was 90 years old. And he said, Enrico, do you know why we lost the war? And I said, of course, no, I don't know why. So I said, well, because in Africa, the Americans, they had one car, one tank, one plane, so they could use the same spare parts for all their equipment.
Yep.
Standardization. We had 10 different models, 10 different tanks, 10 different type of things, and we could not repair any of our equipment.
Wow. Okay.
So, you know, I start with that story, and after the presentation, the person said, look, you could have sold me ice cream to the penguin. Doesn't matter. I would have bought it because your story was what
so
got
powerful.
Me. So the power of storytelling is critical for to drive change.
Fascinating. And as you have worked with many organizations, helping them to transform, what have been some of your challenges and some of your learnings?
You know, when you work in the corporate world, the biggest challenge is always the end of the next quarter. And that means the money, the resources.
Correct. Correct.
And I've learned that you need to lead with passion, but close with data.
Wow. Okay.
And you know, as a young leader, I thought, hey, you know, I can sell this because I'm passionate about it, and because I can show the vision, and you know, who does not want to follow me, right? And with certain swagger and being a bit bragging, you know. And then I realized, oh, that's not gonna, that is not working. And then I realized that passion and energy are certainly a critical part, but executives, senior leadership, rightly so, I should say, want to see the data. So you need to be very analytical, very clear on, I want to go from A to B. That's your change, your transformation. To do this, I need X, Y, Z. And that's why, and when you are going to be in your future status, you will eventually, let's face it, make more money or be more profitable or gain more customer. So lead with passion and with data to really drive a powerful transformation.
Fascinating. My next question to you on transformation is that, you know, we're now in the world of technology.
Oh, yeah,
and
look at that.
Look at the way we are talking now. How is technology changing your work when it comes to transformation?
That's an interesting question. You know, of course, I think about the pandemic that is still fresh in everyone's memory, and certainly, you know, and at the time, I was actually working with people in India when there was a big hit there, and without technology, we could have not communicated.
Right.
In the end, the pace at which technology changes these days is so fast that as a leader, you need to always be willing to learn. I can say that I started working remotely in 2000, well before iPhones or Skype, that probably many of our listeners don't even remember what it is, right?
Yeah.
But you know, the remote communication tool of choice back then was a telephone.
Correct.
And now we have Zoom, etc. But in the end, no matter how fast technology change, the communication is what matters.
Absolutely. Well said.
And communication between men, or, you know, in the human race, communication has always been driven by story. And, you know, I will always go back to story. So it does not matter how fast the technology changes, as long as you can tell a story, you will be successful.
Wonderful. My next question to you, Enrico, is on culture. You know, there are some cultures, some countries where change becomes easy, transformation becomes easy to accept, and there are some where it's very, very difficult. As someone who has worked around the world, what is the impact of culture on transformation?
Oh, it's huge. As you know, if you, and to me, the best example, and I pick two countries because they are the opposite. And then you have, but for example, if I want to introduce a new technology, I go to Norway. Oil and gas, energy, I should say. Every new piece of technology that we invented and revolutionized the way we drill for oil and gas was tested in Norway.
Wow.
Because they don't care. They want to try everything, and they have a desire to be the first. At the opposite spectrum, I would put country that they do not want to change, and I'm thinking, a more traditional country in Asia, China, they're very traditional. India, under some perspective, although I hear from trusted sources that you have a massive thriving startup community these days.
Absolutely. It's amongst the biggest in the world now.
Exactly. So it does not matter the culture, in my opinion. And they always say culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Correct.
But if you don't have discipline, you cannot have change.
Correct.
And so culture that you might see as very traditional or slow to change, but they have a strong discipline. Actually, to me, they are fertile soil for change, because once you, again, through storytelling, convince people that they need to change, then people will have that discipline that you need for a change. And the example is always the same. I want to go to the gym, right? I know I need to change. I know I need to, get in shape because I'm getting a bit older. I need to, stay in shape so I don't have back pain and all that stuff. It's difficult, but then I get in habits and I get the discipline to do it every day. It becomes easy. So if your culture is a disciplined culture, you will drive change much faster than other places. And maybe India could be used as a case in point.
Very well said. Well said. So now let's move to a little bit about your work in the area of business strategy. Tell me, Enrico, the areas of business strategy that you work in.
So I've worked in strategy, and I go back to Porter strategy, the 5-pillar, etc. That I don't know if our audience know, but if you don't, Google it. It's very important.
Yeah,
it would be a complete different discussion, right? But certainly for me, it's been your relationship with your competitor. The area of the focus, because of course the industry I come from, it's extremely competitive. You're not the only business in town, so you need to understand what they do better, and you need to be open for learning. And certainly to me, if you can build an organization strategically that is always looking for learning, then every strategy will be successful, because you will continuously adapt it to the new, back to the fast changing technology, to the new world that this new technology is creating. So strategy for me is making sure you understand what your competitor is doing and you make it better.
Very interesting. And a follow-up question from that would be, what are some of the basic mistakes a lot of business leaders make when it comes to strategy?
So the way I see it is that strategy is easy.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, you don't need to hire McKinsey or one of these big companies to figure it out yourself. If you have a strong team, you do a SWOT analysis, you go through the 5 pillars, you brainstorm, you will come up with a good strategy. Strategy to me is not the problem. Execution is where most of the leaders fail.
Correct.
Because you come up with big strategy and you start sending memos and you start PowerPoint with an agenda, of course, not with a story.
Yeah.
And nobody's understand. And then you think that your strategy is so beautiful that everybody will just go for it, and nobody cares, quite frankly.
Correct.
So you build a beautiful strategy, but I've seen many businesses stopping there and not building the tactics to implement it.
Very interesting. And when now you combine your two areas of expertise, which is transformation and strategy, how easy or difficult is it when you get involved with leaders for people to change strategy or transform strategy?
This will always be difficult. I think we need more leaders in this world with smaller ego.
Very interesting.
And if you think about, again, example of the CEO of BlackBerry. See, I don't remember his name because everybody remembers Steve Jobs. You don't remember the CEO of BlackBerry, but there's a book where his CFO said, I'm really worried about Apple coming up with this new device. And he said, don't worry, we'll be fine. So instead of, and I take him because it's a very great example, but at any scale, even if you're a leader of a small business unit and some of your team member comes and say, look, we have a problem. I think that the customer is not happy. We need to fix it. Every time you hear from a leader, don't worry, it's going to be fine. Or, I know what I'm doing. Or, we've done things always the same way. That's where you really need to do the hard work and sell a powerful story to drive change. So the biggest obstacle to change, in my opinion, it's ego.
Wow. Amazing. And I love the way you are able to come to such simple words after discussing such complexities. Thank you. I've got my time for one more question, Enrico, and this is for all the people, many, many people who will listen to our conversation. Based on your incredible journey over the years in the large multinational companies, now as a solopreneur, working all over the world, what would you say are 3 lessons or 3 learnings you want our viewers and listeners to take away from your own journey and from our conversation?
I could say these are my 3 core values in a way. And one is learning. Never stop learning. We discussed that technology, the world is always changing. Your competitor will come from all over the place. Never stop learning. That's number 1. Number 2, lead with integrity. Your words need to be your bond. Say what you do. Sorry, do what you say.
Do what you say.
Do what you say. And the last one, serve others. Leadership is service. That's to me, and I keep it for last because to me it's the most important. And I would like our audience to go away with this concept. Leadership is service. Unless you care more about the people that surround you, you will not be successful in this world.
Very interesting. And on that note, Enrico, and your 3 core values or your 3 learnings, which is number 1, never stop learning. Number 2, lead with integrity or do what you say. And the number 3 is serve others, because leadership is service. Thank you for talking to me about your own journey, about business transformation, about business strategy. I love your phrase, lead with passion, close with data. And, we've spoken about 2 very complex subjects of transformation and strategy, and yet you brought it down to 2 key takeaways for me. One is communication and how important it is. And number two is ego and how important it is to manage ego. Thank you for speaking to me and good luck to you.
Thank you very much, Ash.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.